Okay, today I have my top 4 wide receivers with hidden value that you guys should be going out and trading for right now. Maybe some of these wide receivers aren't in love with anymore, right? People are thinking maybe they hit the end of their road or maybe their situation has changed. Whatever the case may be, I'm bringing you my top 4 guys in this video. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, please go to flockfantasy.com/land is the best way to support what Zach and I are doing. Not only do you get our bonus rankings, bonus articles, bonus videos, and so much more on the site. You get it from all the other content creators there as well. Once again, flockfantasy.com/land. You get 30% off at sign up. Let's get straight into the video. My first wide receiver with hidden value that I believe people are overlooking, and including myself at some point, and I'm bringing him today, and that is Chris Godwin. Currently wide receiver 34 in the community. He's my wide receiver 32. And I found myself in the past couple weeks, 3 weeks, trying to sell Chris Godwin before my rookie drafts and to say, hey, if I can get a Zay Flowers, I'm happy. If I can get a Jordan Addison, I'm happy. If I can get the 111, the 112, and maybe a nice little package, I'm happy. But now looking into it, a lot of people were trying to get him for even cheaper, right? They were trying to throw me random seconds. They were trying to do all that and much more to acquire Chris Godwin. And I was like, why are they trying to do that? And I had to do a self-reevaluation, and I hope you guys out there that may have Chris Godwin, and I hope this brings you a little bit of hope. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. Chris Godwin. Tom Brady is no longer there, right? Now who's going to be the quarterback? Baker Mayfield, not sexy whatsoever, has never produced in top fantasy wide receivers. Maybe one wide receiver one year, I think it was Jarvis Landry, was a top 15 wide receiver, finished as a top 15 wide receiver out of the years that he was with him. Kyle Trask, we haven't seen the production on the field. Maybe he becomes a superstar, but most likely he won't. So now you think, and the whole community is saying, well, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are tanking for Caleb. And maybe that is the case. They are in clearly rebuild mode. And what's going to be happening with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin? And I think that's where a lot of people are trying to acquire Chris Godwin. He is in that window where he's 27 years old now, going to be 28 at the end of the 2023 season. And he still can get another contract extension, right? Maybe he gets a 2-3 year deal on another team. And I think that's what's really exciting. And he has the proven production. Let me remind you, 2019, he was with Jameis Winston, where he was a wide receiver 2 that year, over 1,300 yards, 9 touchdowns, over 120 targets. That is the Chris Godwin that we all know and love. Obviously, he had the ACL. He had all these injuries with his fingers as well. And I think that kind of derailed him, especially with Tom Brady. That's why he was kind of in this even range of 12 to 15 to 18 range with Tom Brady, because he was actually never really healthy while TB12 was there. But now going a whole nother year removed from injury, a whole nother year with this new offense and this new quarterback. But if he doesn't stay with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because they do on his contract have an out in after the 2023 season, he could go to another team. What if he goes to the Buffalo Bills? Have been raving to get another option, right? What if he goes to Dallas, where Brandon Cook is no longer there after this year? What if he goes to the Arizona Cardinals with Kyler Murray, and clearly that team is rebuilding? What if he goes to the Denver Broncos, where Cortland Sutton is no longer on this team after 2023 season? There are so many different options, so many different opportunities that Chris Godwin can get with the proven production, no matter the quarterback play, as well with Jameis Winston, once again, Tom Brady. And now we're going to be seeing how he's going to be performing this year with either Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask, which kind of excites me and gives me hope for the second half of Chris Godwin's career, where, the 28 plus years, maybe he has another 3 years left, 4 years left in him. And I think if he can get a Caleb Williams, his value hypothetically is going to skyrocket if this team does have a top 10 pick, because no one's going to want to get rid of them. Not one person everyone gets really excited. It's like, whoa, Tampa Bay got a top 10 pick, top 5 pick. Maybe it's Caleb. Maybe it's this. Maybe it's that, right? I think that's what's really exciting. That was the same thing with DJ Moore. Kind of happened this year before the trade. Everyone's like, no, Panthers got a top pick. Panthers surely is going to get CJ Stroud or Bryce Young, and everyone was holding DJ Moore. Everyone was like, okay, hold the brakes. Let's see who they get. And then they trade him away. That's unfortunate. I think that's the same thing that can happen here with Chris Godwin. So once again, wide receiver 34 on the season. my wide receiver 32 right now. And the current price that you can go out and get for him, if you really want to acquire a Chris Godwin, you can send the 111, 112. That's right now Zach Charbonnet and Will Levis, Devin A-Chain right now in your rookie drafts. But some players to swap and think about. George Kittle right now is value for Chris Godwin. Dameon Pierce, Hollywood Brown, George Pickens, really depending on the route and way that you really want to go out and build your team. Some more options here. A Calvin Ridley is in that window. A Miles Sanders is in that window. A Christian Kirk and maybe an extra third is also in that window. So many different opportunities for you to go out and trade for Chris Godwin. My second player with some hidden value that I believe you guys should go out and be trading for on the low as well. Really good price right now, and that is Wan'Dale Robinson. I've been trying to hold down any takes of any New York Giants, and I am a Giants fan, so I've been trying to take my bias extremely out of this. So keep in mind, community wide receiver 49 right now, and he's also my wide receiver 49 in my rankings. Why is Wan'Dale Robinson a guy that I believe you should be going out and trading for? And my biggest reason is the progression that we see from Wan'Dale that we hope to see as well. Okay, so let me remind you, he was drafted in the second round in last year's draft, coming out of Kentucky with Will Levis, only 22 years old. And he was set to have a big year for the New York Giants. Week 1, he catches one pass, he misses four games, right? Then you see the progression week in and week out, right? He comes back in week 6, caught 3 out of 4 targets and a touchdown. Week 7, caught 6 out of 8 targets for 50 yards. Week 8, caught 2 out of 3 targets for 15. Didn't see too much there. And then you go to week 11 and you see it saying, okay, whoa, caught 9 out of 13 targets for over 100 yards. What happened there? He was getting peppered with targets from Daniel Jones when Darius Slayton was there, Isaiah Hodgins was there, Richie James was there. Yes, these aren't notable household names, but I think that's what a lot of people are overlooking right now. People don't want anyone on the New York Giants offense because they don't know who's going to be the target. I think we can all easily say Darren Waller is going to be the number 1 target, without a doubt. So now you have Darius Slayton, Paris Campbell, Isaiah Hodgins, Wan'Dale Robinson, and Jalen Hyatt now. But out of that whole system, all those people they brought in, all those people they drafted, Wan'Dale Robinson, outside of the defensive players, Wan'Dale Robinson is still the highest drafted player from the Brian Daboll and Joe Shane regime on the offensive side of the ball, which I find extremely exciting, which I still believe is being overlooked. Yes, he's a shorter, smaller wide receiver. He may not be as talented or a high regards or a collegiate profile, someone like a Zay Flowers, someone like a Josh Downs, because he was coming out of Kentucky with Will Levis, to be completely honest with you. So we all knew how that worked out. But Wan'Dale Robinson has a pathway. So he did tear his ACL in week 11. He should be ramping up to come back. But the pathway that I see and that I believe Brian Daboll and Joe Shane want to have for Wan'Dale Robinson is those years that we saw with Josh Allen and Cole Beasley. And I think that's exactly how we can compare both of these two and how they're going to be utilized in the coming years. Wan'Dale Robinson is not the sexiest name, but I think the price is what is intriguing me right now. You can get him for a late second in your rookie draft. So obviously, depending on who is available, if a Tank's available, or Roscoe, maybe even a Rashee Rice, I'm willing to hold on to some of those guys. But if you are looking to trade him away for players I'm really interested in to trade away to acquire Wan'Dale Robinson, a Gabe Davis, a Juju Smith right now, a Khalil Herbert. In my opinion, I'm not a massive Khalil Herbert guy. I think you can even get more in return if you do send someone like a Khalil Herbert away. There's so many different ways and opportunities that you can go out and acquire a Wan'Dale Robinson. You can even do a John Mechie and see how you feel about that and want to do a swap. You can do a Darnell Mooney, a Jacoby Myers. Look, once again, I'm looking at the history of how Brian Daboll and Joe Shane have operated, what Wan'Dale has done on the field with the limited amount of production he has had, but also the draft capital that he's had. Once again, the highest drafted offensive player so far in the 2 years of Brian Dable and Joe Shane's, drafting history together. So early second round pick for Wan'Dale Robinson and these New York Giants, and I'm really excited to see what he can do this year. My third hidden wide receiver with some great value, I believe, compared to his teammate, that is Christian Kirk. Right now, according to the community, he is wide receiver 35. He is my wide receiver 34, and I think he could be rising as we get closer and closer to this season. But one thing I really want to address right now, because the fantasy community are loving the Calvin Ridley, they're loving Calvin Ridley hype. They love everything about it. We haven't seen him in almost 2 years. He's going to be playing with Trevor Lawrence. Look how great Trevor Lawrence is coming in. Look how big of a step he's taken in his second year. What's gonna happen in his third year? I agree. This is not an anti-Calvin Ridley take. This is not somebody that I do want on my teams, and I'm happy to invest in, but also happy to sell high at the right time. According to the community right now, Calvin Ridley is wide receiver 33. So the gap there is not significantly big, but when you really see it in your dynasty mock drafts and maybe in your league specifically, he is going about 2.5 rounds earlier than a Christian Kirk. And the only reason why I'm hesitant about Calvin Ridley is because he doesn't have the long-term contract. Christian Kirk signed a 5-year contract with this team. He's clearly going to be growing with Trevor Lawrence. He's only 26 years old, and we're hyping up Calvin Ridley, who is 28 and hasn't played in 2 years. Granted, he has played and has done amazing things. He has been a top 10, top 5 wide receiver. He has led the league in targets or receptions at one point, without a doubt. It's beside one of the best wide receivers at the time in Julio Jones, had a good quarterback in Matt Ryan. I understand. I'm not digging and discrediting Calvin Ridley. But when I'm thinking about price, when I'm thinking about trying to build my team, when I'm thinking about the longevity, I question if Calvin Ridley is going to get a long-term contract with this team. And maybe that is a good argument for some people. Hey, Calvin Ridley doesn't play with Trevor Lawrence. Maybe he goes a Odell Beckham way, where he goes play with Lamar. Maybe he goes plays with Kyler. Maybe he goes play with Josh Allen. That's great. But I want the long-term commitment, especially if I'm building my dynasty team. And I think that's exactly what I want from Christian Kirk. Keep in mind, Christian Kirk had a phenomenal year. Finished wide receiver 12 this past year, caught 84 out of 133 targets, over 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns. This was one of Zach's big takes. Christian Kirk will finish top 10, top 12 in targets amongst wide receivers, and that's exactly what happened. And kudos to him, because I did not see that or project that. And I was a little bit more hesitant that Trevor Lawrence was, hey, he's going to take a big leap. He's going to take a leap, but I didn't know how big it was going to be. But Christian Kirk finishing wide receiver 12, and we just expect Calvin Ridley to come in and take over 133 targets, or let's just say half of those targets. No, I think the people that are really affected is the Zay Jones, the Marvin Jones that are no longer on this team, the Jamal Agnews. That's who is really getting affected. Now, is Christian Kirk going to be eating as much as he was before with 133 targets? No. Maybe that drops to 115. Maybe that drops to 120. Maybe that's not 8 touchdowns. Maybe it's 6. Maybe it's 5 touchdowns. But the receptions, I think, become a little bit more even. So receptions to target ratio is going to be a little bit more even, where maybe he's catching 84 targets or 84 receptions, maybe out of 100, but the efficiency is there on the ground, especially more fantasy points, which I am really excited for. He averaged 14.2 fantasy points per game last year. And I think that could potentially continue, especially with Calvin Ridley on this team. Yes, Calvin Ridley, I personally believe, is going to get a lot of double teams. Shit, Calvin Ridley's back. Oh my goodness, we got to be careful. We got to put another man on there. Who's going to be in the slot? Christian Kirk. That's what's going to be happening. I think a lot of people are overlooking that. And this is why I believe he is a great buy low or a good trade for value wide receiver right now, because a lot of people are overlooking it. Currently, right now in the season, if you want to go acquire Christian Kirk, here are some players I'm really interested to see what I can get for. Hollywood Brown, I'm happy to do a swap for Hollywood Brown. I feel like you can get more for Hollywood Brown. A Dameon Pierce, depending on your running back room. A Chris Godwin, a guy that I just talked about, depending on how you want to build your team. A DeAndre Swift, a Deontay Johnson. right? A Devin A chain in a package, I'm really interested in. Look, so many different ways, so many different options. Once again, you can acquire Christian Kirk, but I think he's being overlooked, undervalued, just because Calvin Ridley, with the history, once again, I agree with the history, is phenomenal. I think we need to pump our brakes and say, okay, hasn't played in 2 years. Let's see how first he's going to perform. Then I'm willing to pay the premium after that. But if not, you can get him on the low for sure still. But I love Christian Kirk. I love everything that he's going to be doing and has done so far with Trevor Lawrence. And I think he's a great trade for wide receiver. My last wide receiver, I believe we should be going out and trying to acquire right now. And I've honestly bought him so many times. And the fact that his value has lowered by 2 spots in the community, I'm really interested to know why. I would love you guys to comment down below to let me know what you think that is. I think I have a reason why, but that is Elijah Moore. Currently in the community, he is wide receiver 45. He is my wide receiver 28 right now, and he has been my bold take. He has been my guy for a long time. One of my favorite wide receivers coming out of that class, obviously outside of the first round guys like Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith, etc., etc. But Elijah Moore, let me repaint this picture of the pathway that we have had and seen with Elijah Moore. If you are new here, he has been my guy all off season, and he's going to continue to be one going throughout the season, leading up to the season. But Elijah Moore, drafted by the New York Jets with Zach Wilson, goes into an offense that wasn't really ready to see the next steps. Zach Wilson, who wasn't really ready to see the next steps, and it was clear from, I would say, at the end of the middle of the second year with Zach Wilson that he wasn't the guy. And then you kind of saw Elijah Moore get really frustrated at that. Not only that he wasn't being utilized in the right way. I brought another video a couple months ago saying how the New York Jets ran Elijah Moore out wide more often than he was in the slot. Elijah Moore, all throughout his whole career at Ole Miss, collegiate career, he was playing more than 80% in the slot. And in New York, he was playing out wide for over 70%, which was already a misuse of Elijah Moore. They draft Garrett Wilson. That's great. More eyes on Garrett Wilson. Still, Zach Wilson wasn't the guy. So now he gets traded to the Cleveland Browns. He's there with Deshaun Watson, Amari Cooper, who is established wide receiver 1, Deshaun Watson, who has been a top 5 quarterback and has produced a top 5 relevant wide receivers in the past. Elijah Moore should be eating without a doubt. And now let's talk about the elephant in the room. What happens if DeAndre Hopkins comes to this team? I'm done, right? Like, if DeAndre Hopkins goes to the Cleveland Browns, all my takes, everything that I've done, all my investing that I've done in Elijah Moore is no longer. And that is unfortunate. That will be a 3 for 3 with me with Elijah Moore. And it's going to be very, very frustrating. But you can't do anything about that. You just have to hope and pray that DeAndre Hopkins doesn't go to the Cleveland Browns and does not get drafted by him or get picked up by the Browns, because that's going to hurt his stock. Now, what is my expectations for Elijah Moore? Throughout the history of of Deshaun Watson, he has always produced a top 5, top 15 wide receiver, whether that was DeAndre Hopkins or Brandon Cooks or Will Fuller. Weeks 1 to 8, Will Fuller was a top, in 2019, he was a top 8 wide receiver before his injuries. Brandon Cooks at the same time was a top 15 top 17, wide receiver during that time as well. Deshaun Watson missing a couple years, not being on the field with all the scandal, now coming back once again, has always been a top 5 quarterback. I think is going to pick up right where he left off with a decent offensive line. Nick Chubb, Amari Cooper, David Njoku, Elijah Moore playing finally in the slot. And we're seeing the hype right now on Twitter about Elijah Moore and Deshaun Watson. This connection is electric. We cannot wait to see him on the field. He could be the new safety blanket for Deshaun Watson, and I am excited for it. That's why he is my wide receiver 28, which is completely wild. Now, let's talk about the type of price that you're going to have to spend to acquire Elijah Moore, who is only 23 years old, by the way. Mike Williams, I'm happy to trade away Mike Williams to acquire Elijah Moore. I think you can get even more for some of these guys depending on the person. A Mike Williams you can send away. A Mike Evans you can send away. A Keenan Allen you can send away. A Desmond Ridder, depending on your quarterback room, you can send away. An Alexander Madison you can send away. And at the moment in a dynasty, in a rookie draft, he is costing around the 205. I am happy to go from the 202 all the way down to the 205 to acquire Elijah Moore. And I've done so many trades to acquire Elijah Moore. Hopefully you can see all that on the screen. It's pretty wild how many trades I've done for him. But look, I'm really excited about every single one of these guys. Elijah Moore, Christian Kirk, Wan'Dale Robinson, and Chris Godwin are my top 4 hidden value wide receivers that you guys should go out and trade for. Comment down below which wide receivers you believe are hidden value right now and that you should be maybe going out. Maybe I should be going out and trying to go get him. Like, comment, subscribe, and as always, it's all love.
Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, L-A-N-D, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy, even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.